Hey guys, this is Nick from ForexNoobs.com with some daily analysis. Today is Tuesday the 10th of May 2016 and it is 1923 here in the UK. You're looking at a USD-CAD daily chart. In today's analysis I'm going to be going through each and every pair on this list to the right here. I'm going to be looking at each and every time frame for those pairs. The reason I look at every time frame and the reason I have these weird time frames up here, so if you look up here you'll see my time frames. I have a few weird ones listed, like the 5 hour, the 7 hour, the 9, the 10, and the 11. The reason I have those time frames listed is because they help me to better read price action. The more you split up a candle, the more views of price action you have, the better you can read price action. I don't actually trade those time frames. The only time frames I'm actually trading are the 3 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour, 8 hour, 12 hour, and daily. Those are the ones I'm trading. The other ones, they're just for analysis purposes. I'm pressed for time today, so I'm going to get through this quickly. So I'm going to skip a few parts of the normal introduction I do. If you feel lost in any way, just check out yesterday's analysis for a more thorough introduction. So let's get started. USD-CAD is first on my list today because there is a potential trade that might trigger soon. I'm probably not going to take it, to be honest. So we can kind of already see it forming on the daily, but it's a bit clearer on the 12 hour. The reason why I'm probably not going to take it is clearer on the 12 hour. Although some people entered on the 8 hour already, so some people in the advanced course are already in this trade. I think personally, in my opinion, entering on the 8 hour was jumping the gun a little bit. But you know, it's up to each trader how they want to handle a trade. Just because you're trading my strategy, you don't have to trade it in the exact same way I do. If you want to enter on the 8 hour, that's fine. I decided to wait for the 12 hour. And to be honest, I'm glad I did. But anyway, let's look at this trade setup real quick. We had a strong bullish preceding trend. We had indecision forming on top of an area of resistance. And now we're getting what looks like a reversal. On the 12 hour, we can see that price kind of like got stuck on this resistance area, pushed down, and then it started pushing back up. So this candle here, price was pushing back up. It is now at the open of that candle, but it's still struggling to make that new low. It's really, really struggling to make a lower low from this candle here. So not entirely a great sign for this trade setup. Let's look at it on the 8 hour real quick. We'll go 11, 10, 9, and the 8 hour. Okay, so on the 8 hour, you can see why people decided to enter this trade. It actually looks quite good on the 8 hour. I didn't want to jump the gun because it was so early in the week, because it was the first few candles of the week. I think those were the first 3 candles this week. Before anyone asks why one of the candles is black, it's just a bug that you get with TradingView, my charting platform. It's one of the very few annoying things about TradingView. You sometimes get bugged candles. Yeah, so that was the first candle of the week here. And it was the first few candles of the week, so I didn't really want to enter on the 8 hour. I wanted to give it more time to form on the 12 hour. And it did kind of push down and stall, and that's where it is right now. It's stalled, but it looks like it's moving down again. It really looks like it wants to push down again. So that is a good sign for the people who are still in this trade. For me personally, it means that I might be a bit too late to the party. So I'm not sure if it's viable entering this trade anymore. I no longer have a good risk to reward ratio. So if price does break the low of indecision, which is here, the 129.05, my entry would be roughly around about the 129.05. Might get in on a retrace, might get lucky. Let's imagine I get in on a slight retrace to, I don't know, here. Let's say I get in at the 129.25 or 129.23. Even from there, the risk to reward ratio is going to be kind of a little bit hard to pull off. You know, I might get 1 to 2 risk reward ratio like you see here. So I like to have a 2 risk reward ratio as a minimum, but it's going to be really, really tough to get that. First, I'm going to need price to break below here and then retrace all the way back up. Then I'm going to need a pretty tight stop loss, which is just above the high of the indecision candle. To be honest, I'm probably not going to end up taking this trade, but I am going to keep a very close eye on it and see how it plays out. If you're willing to enter it based on the 8-hour, then then it's still a bit too late to enter, to be honest. Ooh, look, it's pushing down. I think it's about to make that new low. But it's still going to be a while before I enter it, if I even were to enter it. Because, like I said, I need a break below this level here, below the 129.02 or 04. And then I need it to retrace back up to where it currently is. So I need to get a retrace entry. That way I could get a good risk to reward ratio. Anyway, let's keep going down and just checking it out on smaller time frames. Doesn't look too good on anything else. So I'm going to keep a close eye on this one, but I don't know, probably not going to happen. All right, yesterday we discussed GBP USD daily. I was waiting for a reversal here also, and it's kind of formed, but again, risk to reward ratio is just not going to work for this one. This one's worse than USD CAD by a mile. So let's imagine the entry is up here. I'm going to need it to break the next resistance area completely for it to hit my my 2 risk reward ratio target. Like I said, I could get in on a retrace. So same thing as USD CAD. Could get in on a retrace, but it's probably not going to happen. But again, I am still going to keep a close eye on this one. It's another one I'm keeping an eye on. I've been waiting on this since yesterday, and it's looking pretty decent on the 12-hour also. I'm just in a wait and watch attitude towards these trades. If it were to make a new high beyond this high, so this high here, the 144.77, if it made a new high, then it retraced a little bit, I might be tempted to enter. I want to see some more indication from the buyers that they're willing to push up, that they have the power to push up. But retrace entries are always tricky and they're always risky. You're always magnifying your risk when you enter based on a retrace, because you're entering because you think buyers are in control of price. But if price is retraced, then that could be buyers losing control of price. So it's always something to think about. I'm not sure how I'll handle this, but both these trades, USD CAD, GBP USD, I'm probably not going to take them, but I am still going to watch them, and I might decide to take them in the moment. We'll just have to see how it plays out. I like to make plans for my trades, but I don't like to make too specific a plan until it's time to enter. So I have both these trades planned out roughly as the setup is progressing, but I can't really make any decision until it's time to enter. So that's why I'm always saying maybe. When price breaks, that's when I'll revisit it, and that's when I'll do my proper risk assessment, and I'll decide in that moment if it's worth trading. The reason for that is that if I were to do thorough risk assessment right now on USD CAD and GBP USD, it could be a complete waste of time. I could spend like 5 minutes, 10 minutes doing very thorough risk assessment on these two potential trades, and then by the time they trigger, they look completely different to what they look like now. And that would be a complete waste of time. It would not be worth spending time on. So that's why I have a maybe attitude towards these pairs right now. When the trade triggers, or when it potentially triggers, then I'll do my risk assessment and I'll decide whether it's worth entering. USD JPY, let's check out USD JPY. We talked about this yesterday too. I was saying that, we could potentially see price stalling at this resistance area, but it did not stall. It continued. It stalled a little bit, but it wasn't anything worth trading. There was nothing tradable there. Well, there was something tradable. I should rephrase that. There was the indecision candle, but after the indecision candle closed and the new candle opened, it pretty much moved straight up. So there was no potential to enter a trade there. All we got was a single indecision candle. Yeah, nothing going on USDJPY. Let's check out Euro USD, but it's in between two support resistance areas, so there's no potential to take a trade here. AUD USD, let's do some quick analysis here. Looks like price is stuck on support. But nothing really worth trading, nothing tradable there at all. This is my old USD CAD chart. I had the wrong price feed for my USD CAD chart, so I created a new one, so I'll just delete that one. All right. New Zealand USD. Price is stalling on top of an area of support, but there's nothing tradable on the time frames I'm actually trading. It is quite clear it's stalling on top of this support area, but yeah, there's nothing that I would be willing to trade there. GBP JPY as usual, stuck between two support resistance areas, so nothing happening there. Euro JPY, look where it is. It looks okay on the 3 hour actually. So Euro JPY, this is something we want to keep an eye on. It's approaching a resistance area on the daily. On the 12 hour, we're already getting indecision on that resistance area, and on the 3 hour, we saw indecision there too. This is actually looking pretty decent across the board. See, this is the kind of candle I want to see as an indecision candle. There are better forms of indecision, but what I'm talking about is it's a nice small candle. It's forming on top of a resistance area. So here we're going to be able to get, quite a nice risk to reward ratio. Let's assume it closes like as it looks now. So that's going to give us, a stop loss as tight as this, because the stop loss goes at the top of the indecision candle. You don't need it that tight though. You don't need a stop loss that's that tight, but that's the most recent high, so it could be as tight as that. I'd probably pull my stop loss up a little bit. I'm going to adjust this support resistance area to a little bit lower, because we could see these two recent bounces from down here. I'm going to adjust that support resistance area, pull it a bit lower. And that will give us some room to move a bit further down. So this trade, it's not a trade yet, but if the candle closes like this could potentially be a trade. And it has a pretty decent risk to reward ratio. It has a risk to reward ratio of 3. Now, like I was saying earlier, I'm not going to make any plans for this, because there's no point doing a risk assessment and making a plan for this trade when the candle has not even closed. It's got 6 hours until this candle closes. Well, 5.5 hours, so we got some time. So I'm just going to keep a close eye on it and wait it out, see what happens. But it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on. We can see that price is kind of stalling on this resistance area across the board on pretty much every time frame. Every time frame below the daily, we start to see signs of indecision and signs of price stalling. So that is very, very good. Keep a close eye on that. AUDJPY, let's see what we can see here. Slow loading. Went away on holiday. I come back and TradingView suddenly loading really slow for some reason. All right, we're seeing some signs of price stalling on AUDJPY also at resistance. It does not look quite as good as Euro JPY, but that doesn't really matter. These pairs are generally correlated, but I'm not too worried about that either. I'm going to keep a close eye on AUDJPY. It doesn't look as good, but there's definitely some potential here. Maybe this could turn into a trade in the coming hours. We could just see how it plays out. Sorry about all the noise. My cats are chasing each other about the house for some reason. Okay, so USDCHF. It's in between two support resistance areas, so not much potential for anything here. Nothing. Euro AUD, again, between two support resistance areas, so yeah, nothing going on here. Euro GBP. Nothing, and GBP AUD is just above a resistance area. That's probably turned into support. Looks like it's turned into support, so nothing much worth trading here either. Flick through all the timeframes anyway, because I always do, but yeah, nothing worth trading. So what do we have today? Actually pretty exciting. EURJPY looks like it might be forming a reversal, and it looks like a pretty decent reversal. If this actually forms, if it closes on, you know, the 8 hour or the 12 hour, maybe even the 6 hour, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. The 6 hour actually looks really nice. You know, that's a very nice indecision candle. That's got 3 hours, 40 minutes until it closes roughly. So we'll see how this closes. If it closes well, then I'm definitely interested in taking a trade here. Some concerns with this setup here. Some minor concerns. First is minor support resistance. That's always going to be there in some form or another. It's very rare that you see a potential trade and there's no minor support resistance getting in the way. Minor support resistance is just areas that might block your progress on the trade. So, you know, when price gets down to here, price has a history of bouncing from here and stalling there. You can see it stalled here and it took quite some time, pretty long time before it finally got through. So, you know, that could affect this trade on its way down. It could bounce away from there. So that is a legitimate concern. It's something to be worried about. But, you know, if you never took a trade because of minor support resistance, actually what I mean to say is if you avoided trades because of minor support resistance, you would never be in a trade ever. You're always going to see some minor support resistance. The trick is when you look at a trade, when you're looking at your charts and you're looking at a trade setup, you just look to the left. So you take a quick look to the left, and when you look at the left, do you see major signs that the trade is going to be held up? Here I'm seeing some kind of like, I wouldn't call them major signs, but I would say, I wouldn't call them minor either. There is a kind of, let's say, medium chance that price might be held up here. So it is something to think about. But other than that, this looks like a pretty solid setup. If it were to close exactly like it is now, it's a pretty solid setup, and it is definitely, I would say, worth risking that minor support resistance for. So yeah, let's imagine closes like this. Even at this point, right? You know, imagining that you're entering here, let's say the stop loss is even here. Even at the point where you're hitting that minor support resistance area around about here, you've already got a risk to reward ratio of 2. So you've already hit that risk to reward ratio of 2. That's the minimum for me. So we've got a pretty clear run towards that minor support resistance area. The overall target would be something like down here, which would be roughly 3 risk to reward ratio. So this looks honestly like a pretty solid trade. If you were to base it off the 8 hour, the numbers would be slightly different, but again, you could get a pretty solid risk to reward ratio pretty easily. So I definitely see a lot of potential in this trade. I'm going to keep a very close eye on it. AUD-JPY, it's a similar trade setup, both JPY pairs. It doesn't look like it's stalling as much though. So it doesn't look as good, but it is worth keeping an eye on. USD CAD, I've already discussed USD CAD. There's no point going over it again. So I hope you enjoyed today's analysis. If I do trade Euro JPY, I will be posting it as an idea to TradingView. TradingView is my charting platform, and you can post ideas to it. So, if I see a good setup, I'll be publishing it as an idea. I'll also be publishing it to my Twitter. And yeah, we'll see how this Euro JPY one plays out. I hope you enjoyed the analysis, and I'll see you for tomorrow.